as when I was still living in Dharamsala, I used to bring a whole bag full of book covers and malas and notebooks, and I made out of rice paper and all this. Now I live in Switzerland, so I bring special cookies and chocolate.
You have Tibetan shop there, but it will be more
The prices are a little bit different than in Dharamsala. I know, it's true. I could actually buy some. You're right. So.
Swiss chocolate is very good.
Yeah, okay. Couldn't bring any chocolate this year because I came in August, so Swiss chocolate doesn't survive Israeli temperatures. So I would have to have carried in a cool box. No. So I bought cookies, special cookies that you can only get in Bern, which are made of hazelnut, almonds, honey, and some spices. So.
You didn't leave the malas with your pies?
No, I had them here. When I came, I had them in my hand, I know. So if anybody sees a small plastic bag with some malas, it could be in the storeroom, it could be that I'd put it in my room somewhere, because I had left it here. So I thought maybe somebody saw. In the storeroom, so.
Maybe it's in the bag, in the backpack?
Which backpack?
The bag that you bought with all the things?
Maybe. No, it's not, because that bag is in my room. I looked in all the bags. Anyway, I'll just keep looking. If anybody sees it, it's okay. Don't worry. It's all right. Just in case somebody sees it, okay? Don't make this a big problem now. I know you want to help, but it was just kind of a question. Has anybody seen it? Not a question for you. To me, where did you put it? If I knew where I put it, I would know where it is. So, transparent. So, okay. How are you, everybody? Okay? It's such a shame, because somebody needs to say I'm not okay, because that's what we're doing here. We're doing how to transform these things when you're not okay. Yeah. So again, I just want to mention it. This is called mind training. So now we're coming to, yesterday we did point 4, like 3, 4, 5, which is how to apply it in your daily life. And then you see the points. And then very often we forget that it starts with, preliminaries. It starts with telling you have to practice shamatha and vipassana. Shamatha in order to tame the mind. Vipassana in order to have insight that actually what we see is just an illusion. And then when we see these points, we forget. You see, these points, the more you start to train the mind, the more easy they will become, and the more natural they will become that you will react like this to difficult situations, because you will have this wish to calm things down. You will not have a wish anymore to bring in your opinion and I have to be right. And this will disappear slowly. So don't forget that this is a training. It's not something, because we react as if we should do it. When it says banish the one to blame, or like put the blame on one thing. Okay? We can't do this now. We're too chicken. We don't have enough courage, because again, we don't have a clear understanding of karma. If I lose my job, what is it? It's karma. We don't trust that law of cause and effect. You see, we still think we can, if I'm careful enough, I can still avoid negative suffering occasions. We still think that. So first we make the mind familiar with this. Whenever something happens and you feel really good, you go like, wow, great, positive karma ripening. So I have to, I want to make more of this. Not in order so that you're happy, but again, with this bodhicitta thought, if I'm not happy, how can I be of benefit to others? Now, again, if you stop harming others, karma is stopping to harm. Taking care of your action means you stop harming others. It doesn't go into helping others yet. It's only not to harm others. So again, we try to start far too high. We want to help others, but we haven't learned how to stop harming them yet. So the feeling that we have, I think when we help others, comes from I didn't do good things, so maybe I need to do something good in order to counterbalance the bad or something like that. So it's kind of not such a good motivation. If you stop harming others, it's the first step, and that is so valuable. It's so beautiful. The world would be totally different if everybody would abide by these 5 very simple precepts. Not to kill, not to steal, not to do sexual misconduct, not to lie, and not to go into intoxicants. We would have such a beautiful world. It's simple stuff. It's nothing complicated. And I really, you see, when you learn about karma, that the results ripen on 2 levels. Okay, you remember these 2 levels? The level of there's 4 results, right? One is the ripening result. This determines the form that you're going to take in your next life. Then there is the result of
Completing result.
huh?
Completing.
Yeah. That's not going into the results, but it goes into karma.
The last one is
I mean, on the one hand, you're right, because what happens to us, the same thing will happen to you, but not, you see, karma also increases. So a small negative act you can get a huge result if it doesn't ripen immediately. This is why also, when you know that principle, that when something harms you now, you think, wow, fantastic, it ripened, it's finished. It's not sitting on the mind stream, growing and making a bigger result. I remember in Kopan, I was after puja. I kind of liked the pujas until I knew what it was all about, kind of, because then I knew it's like, I have to be really concentrated, and it's very complicated, and it's very intricate. I just like to sit there and sing along without understanding anything. I didn't have this mind who has to understand everything. It sounded great, and there were great cookies, and the energy was always really nice. Of course, it's 200 monks, it's not like in the West. It looks more natural for Tibetan monks to do pujas than for Western people. For Western people, me also, when I see myself on a video, I also think it looks weird, with like big drum and the bell and all that. But anyway, and then I helped to clean up. And at that time there was, maybe still now, because it wasn't the big gompa, it was a smaller gompa, and you had to go down the stairs, and I was going down the stairs. I was so happy, I jumped a few steps and I fell. And in my foot I heard and I had broken a bone. It was very painful. But I was sitting there going, wow, this could have been a state in the hell realms. And on a puja day, it's ripening. How fantastic. You see, this is the thing. It's like the bone is broken. Now I can be very depressed about this, or I can start to see the benefit. So when we have big things happening to us, Westerners, then the thing is, I deserve it, or I have done that to somebody else in the past. Not necessarily. Yeah, because karma increases the same way as a small seed, like we do a negative action or a positive action, it goes for both. If it doesn't come together with any conditions, it's very small, but the moment you put it in the earth, it makes something bigger. And on top of it, if you let it grow, it makes many more seeds than just one. Every plant has more seeds than one. So this is this whole thing, karma increases. So while it is remaining on the mind stream and not ripening, nobody brings it up by doing the same thing to us. So it could be that the result will be much heavier. This is why we try to purify as much as possible. And if somebody harms you, then you actually see that person as a helper instead of being as somebody who hinders you. Now that's a dangerous view if you do not really understand what karma is all about, because then you become the masochist who is going around letting everybody harm you. See, everything that I'm saying has 2 sides. Now, the more you are together with other people who practice this, the more you listen to the teachings, and that needs time. The more you start to integrate that into your daily life, then there's no more yes but, because then what's the right way of thinking and what is the wrong way of thinking. And the same sentence can be poison and it can be medicine. And who is the one who can find out whether you use it as medicine or you use it as poison? Who?
Me.
Only you. Only you. You don't like confrontation? You start to do this. You say, yeah, okay, I'm doing mind training and everything is impermanent and I'm practicing patience and anyway it's karma ripening. But you use these tools because you're afraid of confrontation. Then again, it's this sentence, you're making gods into demons. Yeah. If you're afraid of confrontation, I'm not saying you should train to then go into confrontation, but at least don't withdraw and or see what you're doing. And then with patience, come back into the situation. That you're not practicing patience, you're not putting patience in front because you're too scared of having a confrontation. That would be taking these very beautiful teachings into something that it's just an excuse for not reacting. We'll talk probably about patience in the Yom Kippur retreat because patience is like, that's the antidote for anger. It's like, very often we think it's love. Love is the opposite of anger, but the antidote for anger is patience. And unfortunately, patience, even we ourselves, because that's not how we grow up, this is not what we learn. Patience seems to be a sign of weakness because that's what we use it for very often. Because, so I better practice patience. Yeah. You practice patience, like patience is a mind that you could retaliate. It's not dangerous for you to retaliate, but you don't. You choose not to pay back. An insult for an insult, a hitting for a hitting, a swear word for a swear word, a gossip for a gossip, or whatever. You choose not to react. As I said yesterday, this mind who is very strong and very dignified, very ethical, says, no, I'm not going to harm now. And I'm not going to harm myself either by swallowing it. And then rehashing it, complaining. So again, coming back right to the beginning, when you practice shamatha and vipassana, all of a sudden you start to see this nagging mind is really eating up all my energy. It really tires me out. It's never happy. It always picks up the things that are not right. It hardly ever sees the things that are okay. And he goes, complaining. So when you see it on a very direct level, then you have an interest to stop it. But not here. Here you all know it. Yeah? Still the mind complains. Still we wallow in this thing, oh, my life is so difficult and I have so many problems and blah, 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 blah. And we don't notice how that prevents us from being happy. If you really think that you dealt with your difficult life, why mention it? Why bringing it up all the time? Again, it goes into the Yom Kippur retreat. Because being the victim gives us a perverse power. We're special. See, people ask me, how are you? I say, I'm fine. Conversation finished. You become a very boring person when you're well. And we prefer not to be boring over happiness, unfortunately. Yeah. People ask me, I'm fine. I could say, I have this and I have that and I have this, but what does it help? What does it help? And then you start to see the difference by being just simple and saying, yeah, I'm okay, because I'm okay. To, I have this and this and this and this is not right and that is not right and this and this and this. Then I start to believe it. And I start to look into that direction, then of course I get depressed and anxious and fearful and all this. I was very anxious and fearful. This is why I drank. I was always full of fear as a kid. I faked that I wasn't. I didn't even notice how much fear I have, because I had it from the beginning of my life. And because I always had it, it seemed to me that everybody is like this. And it's after my, when you said after Tushita you felt so good. And it's after my first meditation course, I came down from that hill. It was only a 10-day course at Kopan. Then I signed up for the 1-month course. I went back into a new situation without any fear. And I went like, wow. This is the first time I noticed my fear. I'd already given up drinking by then, so that's okay. So it isn't Buddhism. It's not thanks to Buddhism that I was able to give up drinking. I gave up drinking because I think I was fed up by always using it as an excuse to do whatever I wanted to do. I would harm people with my words, and I would say, oh, sorry, I was drunk. And that was it. And then I didn't have the excuse anymore, so I had to be careful what I was saying. That's the only way to stop. And I was really grumpy, and I treated people quite unjustly, especially my friends. And years later, I asked my best friend, who was a very devout Christian, and we're still best friends, or very good friends, like, I think best friends. And because it's also the time span, since we were 18. So you can be best friends with somebody who has totally different religious views. It's absolutely no problem, as long as you're not wanting to put yours on them. Yeah. So I asked her, I said, why did you never react? She said, oh, I just saw how you were suffering. Now, is that good compassion? I'm not sure. I think it would have been a wake-up call if she would have taken me by the shoulders and said, hey, who the heck you think you are? Maybe it would have helped. I don't know. Maybe I would have turned away from her. So this is what we don't know. This is why we have to become Buddhas, in order to know, is a forceful reaction now necessary? Or just seeing, wow, she's suffering, so it's okay. But she didn't suffer. She was never angry. She said, I was never angry. I just saw you suffering. So for her, it was good to see my suffering and just to not react. She said it wasn't pleasant, but it wasn't, it didn't affect our relationship at all. Yeah, so like that. So that's one way the karma ripens, when it comes back to us. But the other way the karma ripens also, we create a habit. Yeah. So this is why we can start to not to demand too much of ourselves, to be compassionate and to react in a good way and all this, because we know the inner forces are driving us that way, whether we want or not. So we can start to be forgiving and to just continue to practice. Yeah. So awareness, mindfulness, and vipassana, special insight, to always come back to the mind. How do I feel? How do I feel? How is the, not how do I feel? How is the mind? How is the mind? How is the mind? If you have that ability, you have a very good tool for the negative emotions to just collapse. Because you're out of the emotion, and you're in the nature of your mind, which is spacious and big. And you see, this open awareness that we practice, you just let things be the way they are. We don't need to interfere all the time. We relax. And about this thing, I take the blame. When Sarah said I would lose my job, not sure. We're too frightened of doing it. But let's say like this, so at the beginning, maybe you can just act. You don't say anything, but you act as if this is your responsibility. Instead of thinking, oh, it's none of my business there. Yeah, you act as if you made the mess, meaning trying to clean it up. You could also act by feeling guilty and covering it up, or you could act by trying to see what you can do to clean it up. Do you see what I mean? There's, like we learn kind of with this, it can be understood in so many ways in a wrong way. We learn not to blame anybody, or to put the blame on one thing, to self-cherishing, that's it. But we blame it on people or situations or ourselves, like, I'm so bad, I'm so stupid, and all this. You can say I'm stupid. I tell myself very often, you're so stupid. You know, but it encourages me, kind of makes me pull myself together. Other people, it destroys them. So you have to see what works with yourself. You are given a lot of tools. And at the beginning, you're like somebody who has been born on a remote island. You've never seen anything else but what nature gives you. And then you come into town and you go in a department store and somebody has given you this unlimited credit card. So you buy everything because you say, oh, this I can use, and this I can use, and this I can use, and this I... You know, when... yeah, you don't know maybe. You know Eastern and Western Germany? Like in Eastern Germany, they were very deprived of things. So if somebody would have a permit, like it was a bit like here at the moment, that they were not allowed to go to Western Germany except for special reasons. So when somebody would go into Western Germany, the first thing they did, they went shopping. Especially the handy people, you know, the handymaids, because their material was so bad. So you would see them in these, you know, like Hornbach and these kind of shops where they sell tools and screws. They would buy screws and things like this because they couldn't find proper material. So imagine, you know, you're being given all these tools. So don't be like this person who was deprived of everything and all of a sudden you take everything on board and you want to practice all of it. You're just being exposed to it. Because otherwise the load is far too heavy. Yeah? It's the same for the whole of Buddhism. You're being given the whole range. And then you look, okay, what do I need at the moment? And then you know the other things are there. So when I need them, I can go and get them. Do we need the light? I don't think so. Maybe we can turn it off. So, shamatha vipassana, like awareness and, or mindfulness and awareness. Mindfulness just being with the object, awareness what's going on, is, if you don't develop that, the door to negative emotions is so open, is wide open, because we don't notice it. We only notice them when we're in the middle of it, when they're already developed into a storm, and then we try to battle, and then we increase them, because we give them a real existence. And then we try to apply love when we're angry at somebody. It won't work. It really won't work. Because, of course, we hear, you know, the opposite to anger is love. Anyway, it's okay. Be as if you would be in a lab. And try it out. These are all things that, you know, components. And then you start to experiment. You put them together. You see, can I put love on top of anger? You try it out. Somebody just hurt your feelings. And you go like, oh, may you be happy. May you be well. May you not suffer from this. Your mind will go like, are you crazy? Yeah? Much better first to calm the mind down by saying, oops, karma ripening. Okay. At least it didn't ripen in a big thing. Or like from the mind training also is like, I remember Tema Lodro Rinpoche told you this thing when he was teaching on the essence of refined gold in Tuval. You remember when he said like how he practiced patience? If somebody harms you with words, then you think, okay, at least he didn't hit me. If somebody hits you, you think, well, at least he didn't cut off one of my limbs. If he cuts off one of your limbs, you think, well, at least he didn't kill me. If he kills you, you think, well, at least he can't throw me into the lower states, because who is throwing me into the lower states is my negative mind. That's how you deal with difficult situations. And there's this very nice story about the Tisha also when he was in Tibet. And he was a monk, so he never had anything on him. But he was stressed because monks, and he was a high lama. So especially in Tibet, he was given, you know, like donkas made out of brocade and like this, so he looked like a rich person. So two bandits and he was alone, so two bandits stopped him because they thought they could rob him and he had nothing on him. And they got angry, so they slapped him because they got so angry that they couldn't steal anything from him. So this he kind of thought, okay, you know, they slapped me and like that. So then he started to walk away, And he looked around, and then they came back and slapped him again. So he said, for the first slap, this is not my fault. The second slap, this is my fault, because I didn't have to look back and triumph that I couldn't steal anything. Yeah. So he doesn't take responsibility for the first slap, because it's not my fault. But the second one, he knows, yeah, it is my fault. So do you understand this whole thing about you take the football, like when there's blaming going on, yeah? Because not only in the workplace, it's also in families where taking the blame is you're not losing your job, you're not losing your husband, you're not losing your children. We start to see how we resist to that, how we really, we're so righteous. And when you see that it's your fault, but it's just being said, isn't this happened? Like, for example, the door to the freezer is not being closed and everything is now spoiled because, and you know it was you, but you feel like, it's nobody's being accused, so maybe, you don't say anything. And then, instead of feeling bad about this, you think, next time I admit. And then again you don't admit, and you go, next time I admit, and then again you don't, and then next time I admit. So we give different information to the subtle mind, to the subconsciousness. Hey, it's good to admit. At the moment, the subconsciousness is holding all these habits of, no, don't admit, no, hide it, no, like that. So we need to change this gradually. Because as I said, so many occasions where we should have taken the blame, but we didn't, now we can make up for it. But it needs courage, and it's true, then it's possible you get anger from the other person. Not that they say, oh, thank you very much for admitting that you made a mistake. Yeah. Usually when somebody makes a mistake, and it's like, first one is, look, who made that mistake, then what happens? What's the next step, usually? You never make mistakes? Huh?
They shout at you.
Yeah. They scream at you. So then what do?
Get scared.
You think, wonderful. They really tell me that I'm an idiot. They show me the mirror because too I make the mistake. And this is really helpful. They're not like that. Then we go inside and see how does that help the situation now? Going inside also, then we don't feel so hurt and we don't feel so frightened. It's just words. And then, with mindfulness, what do we observe?
The energy.
What do we observe with mindfulness? That we're doing exactly the same thing. Maybe not as shouting, but inside also. Somebody makes a mistake, at least the face shows some annoyance. This mistake should not have happened. We start to see our own reaction. We're exactly the same way. Also with closing up and showing, hey, you stupid. Maybe just on the face. So then we train to react when other people make mistakes by saying, it's fine, everybody makes mistakes. Let's see what we can do now. But habitually, we don't react that way. Just look, just observe. Because mistakes are annoying. They're a hassle. We have to do extra work, usually. But you see, if you don't want hassle, if you don't want problems, if you don't want mistakes, then you need to get out of samsara, because that is dukkha. The first noble truth, that is that situation where something always happens. As long as people are like this, the way we are, as long as the environment is like this, the way it is, as long as the situations are like that, we will have problems again and again and again and again. Don't hope for a quiet life, you will not have it with a deluded mind. Everybody has problems, even the person with 150 millions. Even somebody who is so powerful that they have a whole army who stands at his command. plus all the riches. That's why we have to get out of samsara, or settle for it, or do mind training and see these as stepping stones to create more patience and all that. Okay? It's natural, it's normal for a samsaric life to have problems. We refuse to believe it. Do you know one person who has never had a problem? One. There's absolutely nobody. But then we think it should be me who doesn't have problems. It's so not logic. Where we put our automatic pilot. So Lama Zopa Rinpoche says, he says, look, if you will have problems in your life when you put the label happiness on the wrong things. We put the label happiness on financial security, good relationships, skills, freedom of speech, kind of nice environment and all this. That's pleasure. That's where pleasant feelings. That's where we put the label happiness. But they're not happiness, they're just pleasant. And they turn into suffering. Why? Because they change. The happiness about your 150 millions, at one point you get used to it and the happiness to have it is gone. They made research. People who won the lottery and people who had an accident to be paralyzed. After 1 year, their level of happiness was back to the same. So when science says it, then we believe it. When the Buddha says it, then we don't believe it. The Buddha's been saying that since 600 years. Yeah, so science is only now, they have these machines where they can kind of measure the brain waves and all these kinds of things. So it's nice that science says the same thing. So they confirm what the Buddha said like 2,500 years ago. So don't hope for a life without problems. But when you put the label happiness on problems, difficult people, then we go in a safe direction. Why? Because if you can not hate difficult people, if you can love in a way of accept difficult people the way they are, if you have friendly feelings towards them, even maybe you show an angry face, that's fine to protect yourself, but you at all costs you don't want to harm them, that is a happy mind. If you have a mind that can say, okay, I tried everything, nothing is working, I let go, I let it be, and you totally relax. That is a happy mind. That is happiness. So how can we develop that happy mind? Is by having problems and by being with difficult people. Then we make progress on the path. Then we become the people that we would like to be. Otherwise, we have very high ideas how we should be. Yeah? But then we give that mind who wants to be like that confusing information. Like we want to be diligent, we want to be patient, we want to be generous, and then whatever occasion we have to train it, we run away. So then no wonder we are confused. Yeah? Okay. So this is what I kind of wanted to say. Point number 6. So we go this morning, I think these points are pretty much straightforward. So we go to point number 6 and 7, and then this afternoon, although we already did it last course, we look at point 2b again about emptiness, because that is so important. The point about emptiness, some texts put it first, like the older texts. This text puts it after conventional bodhicitta. The German text I had put it right at the end, in order not to fall into nihilism. But if you don't know about emptiness, it's like everything becomes really heavy. If you don't know that the self-cherishing does not exist, that ego does not exist, then it becomes really a battle, and then it becomes really heavy. So this is why we'll look at these points of point 2b again this afternoon. Okay, then don't go against the mind training you promise to observe. So point 6 has to do with Prajnaparamita. It's the sixth of the 6 perfections, wisdom. So if you do mind training, what is it based on? Again, come back to the same thing.
Familiarity.
Huh?
Familiarity. Critical content.
Higher than that. What is point 2? What's the method? What did you say, Dawn? I didn't hear.
Awareness.
Starts with B.
Bodhicitta.
Bodhicitta. You want to develop bodhicitta, that mind that seeks enlightenment, that mind that goes towards enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. This is why you do these points. Not to have a happy life now, although it helps in your life now also. But the point is to have a mind that is so strong that at all costs you want to develop bodhicitta. Okay? Don't forget that. This is it. So don't go against the mind training you promise to observe. So the mind, what we promise to whom? To ourselves. We made a decision. As I said, these things you have to do them voluntarily. Nobody can force you to do that. And we all know when it comes from somebody else, even when it comes from ourselves, I have to, I should, you're not allowed to. Does that work? I want to. Then we have a chance. But I want to also giving ourselves the space that this is difficult. As Liron, at the very beginning you said, wow, this, Limor, sorry. Limor, good thing. Please correct me if I'm not right with your names. Limor said, this is difficult. Yeah, it is difficult. So we have to, instead of being discouraged, we honor the fact. You see, when you look at people who have these minds who look for difficulties, the climbers, the surfers. Have you ever seen the surfers when they do kite surfing? Do they look suffering? Do you think they need effort?
Yeah, of course.
Do you think they need training? It looks totally effortless, doesn't it? When you see them just going and jumping and with the waves and all this, no fear, and a lot of fun and a lot of joy. So that's what they do with the body. This is what we do here with the mind. But it needs training. Yeah? So we have to decide for ourselves, am I inspired by bodhicitta? Do I like this thought? Yeah. I want to travel this path to full awakening in order to be of benefit to others. Do I want that? You see, the Buddha, he taught 2 vehicles. The vehicle for people who it's too high. They say, my self-liberation, that's enough, that's good enough. And the other one was for people who wanted to go further. Both of these vehicles are valid. Both of these vehicles, or paths, let's say, because if I say vehicle, maybe then you don't know what I'm talking about, because they are called yanas. They're called vehicles. Yeah? Both of them are legal. The Buddha taught both of them. So if you're in the Mahayana tradition, the one who wants to seek enlightenment for all sentient beings, please don't look down on Hinayana practitioners. Oh, I'm a Mahayanist. These are very selfish, these people. Don't go like that. Sometimes you see texts that sound a little bit like that. But these texts are for you to look at your mind that you claim to be a Mahayana practitioner, but all you're practicing for is for the happiness of this life. Not even for your own liberation, but for the happiness of this life. So when they talk somehow against the Mahayanas, the Hinayana, sometimes in the texts, this is not for you to look down on others. This is for you to check, which direction am I going here? I know Hinayana practitioners who have much more compassion than some Mahayana practitioners, much less self-cherishing. So, please, And at the time of the Buddha, many more people were practicing Hinayana. Why? Because it's easier. Because what you practice is ethical conduct and vipassana, like awareness, like a lot of meditation. You have much quicker results. You don't need to run around and help others and go against your self-cherishing and all that. You just need to be ethical. That's much easier. That's the first step. Yeah. Then less people practiced Mahayana, and even less people practiced Vajrayana. And today is still like that. Yeah. So what was okay at the time of the Buddha should also be okay now. Why would that be a problem? So please do not judge them. I think, they're so selfish. But look at me. I work for the benefit of all sentient beings. Yeah. We'll come to the 8 worldly concerns here then afterwards. So, bodhicitta is of 2 kinds. So it's being kind to others, being gentle, being helpful, and all this, like the conventional bodhicitta, but the other bodhicitta also, ultimate bodhicitta, to study about emptiness. So these are the promises that you observe, to practice both of them. The second one, don't be reckless in your practice. I didn't find anything in my German commentary. Who has the, Alisa? Yeah, do you have this point there? Don't be reckless. In the point number 6, the second one. Yeah, you can read it in Hebrew.
זה 3 הנקודות זה אחר כך.
זה אחר, לא,
זה השלישי. זה 2. זה 2.
Point 6, the second point in point 6.
עסוק במרץ בטיפוח סגולות ובנטישת הרגשות המטרידים.
Do you have this point? Does it say don't be reckless?
No, we don't.
What does it say?
You should nourish the good qualities and abandon the bad feelings, the pleasures.
Really?
This is the second one?
כן, ככה זה כתוב פה. עסוק במרץ בטיפוח סגולות.
It's nice that we have different ways and different commentaries. This is also, you have to learn to be really flexible in the Tibetan tradition, because it's not just the spoken word of the Buddha and that is as if it's written into stone. We have a lot of commentaries, and people, because we have different predispositions, they see it differently, they use it differently, and then they write a commentary. So again, you need to have the wisdom. One thing is, what's the essence of that? And the second one is, does it apply to me? Yeah.
So what is
Also the translator, the thing is
Huh?
with
the
translators.
meaning of reckless?
Reckless, careless,
Aziz.
careless, reckless. Like, like me, jumping down the steps and falling and out of happiness, being so happy and being so excited that I was careless and I broke a bone in my foot. Reckless. So what could it mean? Because the point is there, so we can start to look at it.
To be focused. It's not to take it like for granted and do it just because you
For example,
decided.
not to take it for granted. I think it means not to bite of 2 bites that are too big for us to swallow. Yeah.
This is not reckless.
No,
It
that's
is.
the meaning of
Take
Not being
much.
careful. Not being careful.
I think the opposite. I think being reckless is that you get like the preliminaries to do prostration, to prepare everything for meditation, then say, oh, I don't need this, I don't need this, I don't need this, I don't need
Could
that.
also be, yeah. Like, I'm so great, I'm so wonderful, I
Yeah,
don't
I
need
don't
to
need
do all
this.
these preliminaries.
I
I
don't
just
need to
start.
go to courses, I don't need to go to
Exactly.
teachers, I don't need
Yeah,
to...
I have a very good mind, I can meditate very well. And this is one thing I want to really warn you. There are people that they come for their first course, they sit down in full lotus, never done any yoga, never done anything like that. Very often they just sit in full lotus, absolutely no pain. You sit, they very straight back, and you see they're totally at ease. And they have a really good time in their meditation. So that is the imprints that you are taking from your past lives, your past practices. So the problem with these people is they think they're very special because they can see everybody's